going on? You're not Snowflake. Balls! Help!
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
You're killing me, Lols.
Spoilers! You've been living under a rock, there will be.
Happy 4th of July! I'm Danny Nightmare, and I'm a horror addict. And I thought no better movie to review for the 4th of July other than Jaws. That's right. In 1975, this movie came out. It was directed by Steven Spielberg, who I thought, at the time, he'd done a few movies, but he really wasn't the map. This legendary movie, which was a bitch to make, but fun to watch, really put him in legendary status as far as directors go. It's based on a book with the same title, Jaws, written by Peter Benchley. And this movie was before they had PG-13 ratings. So it's rated PG, but it still gives you boobs, blood, and they have the balls to kill off a kid. Oh man. Yeah, that's right. Chrissy takes it all off. And her scene starts off right in the beginning. So she's swimming around topless, getting pulled this way and that way by people on the beach who have her hooked up to a harness, and I believe even Spielberg himself is pulling on a rope which dunks her underwater. And her scene, they does not show the shark, but it is still an epic death. And I'm glad they didn't show the shark. In the book, from what I understand, they describe the shark right off the bat, and that's fine to read, but I'm glad that they kept the audience a little more in suspense. And I think Spielberg, from what I understand, did that on purpose. There's a lot of times in this movie where the shark wasn't working, but I think this is one of the they genuinely did not want the shark in this scene. Later on, I think they used that as an excuse just because they couldn't get the damn thing to work. And then when they find poor Chrissy's body, they discover something very horrible. She has crabs. Lots of them. Ugh. She wasn't killed by no propeller. Even Richard Dreyfuss can tell you that. And he plays Hooper, marine biologist, and he really shines in this movie. From the autopsy, to finding teeth in Ben's old boat, to being mauled in a cage that was meant to be an anti-shark cage. He is great. It's so weird to see him so young. I always think, when I think of him, I think of what about Bob? Bill Murray was not in this movie to annoy him. Robert Shaw, who plays Quinn, does a great job of annoying him. They get under each other's skin quite a bit. However, until they get drunk in the end, and they kind of start getting into a pissing contest, showing off their scars. Interesting enough, Roy Scheider, aka Chief Brody, is the main character, and he almost lifts up his shirt to reveal a scar, but then he thinks not of it. I don't know. He lets them just go on in their pissing contest of who's more damaged. I'll get back onto that later. Okay, in case you didn't know the story, Chrissy's not the only victim. The whole small little island town of Amity is under attack on the 4th of July weekend as Jaws, this giant man-eating great white, it's about 25 feet and 3 tons of just swimming and eating, gobbles up kids, allegedly a dog, there's no proof, but the guy's dog goes missing, and a bunch of other innocent victims. Fishermen, swimmers. Chief Brody is so stressed out, not even just with the shark. I mean, he's got karate 9-year-olds karateing up fences, he's got Boy Scouts to worry about, or swimming in shark-infested water. I mean, you take away even the violence of this movie, and everybody's coming up to that guy, just bugging him with their problems and stuff. Yeah, I can see why he drinks a lot. And I heard a great theory about him, where this whole movie isn't even about the shark so much. I'm not saying that there isn't a shark, but this theory that I saw from Cracked, have you ever watched Crack? I'm sure you have. It talks about how he's really just a raging alcoholic, and this movie is about how he battles his alcoholism and his shame of how he was something disgraceful while on the force, probably while intoxicated, or maybe it led to him drinking a lot, I don't know, while he was in New York, and then he got sent over to Amity. Now, that's just a theory, I haven't read the book, maybe the book explains a little more of his odd behavior, his excessive drinking, and why he didn't show his scar in that pissing contest I was talking earlier. There's a lot of epic deaths. People getting their legs ripped off, people's floating heads popping out before jump scares. It was actually a pretty good jump scare as far as jump scares go. Chrissy's death was amazing, like I said in the beginning. Then later, the cards are stacked higher as Alex is killed. You don't see a whole lot, but what you do see scares the living crap out of you, and it's pretty brutal. He's just a small kid. And amazing photography on his death, despite the lack of what you get to see. Later on in the book, Quint is killed when he drowns and gets pulled underwater. But in the movie, no, they made it way more epic. And I would say best death in the movie is when Quint dies. He slides down into the shark's mouth. He's trying to fight it. He's even stabbing it in the head with his machete, and it just literally like bites him almost in half and just pulls him down to his murky grave to swallow him up. And that was the best death. No, I take it back. The best death in this movie is Jaws. Smile, you son of a bitch. Boom! Explosions. And a lot of people told Spielberg that that death was so unbelievable. But in the book, once again, Jaws just kind of was harpooned and he drowned and Quinn drowned. They both just kind of had a downer ending in the book. So in the movie, no, they wanted it just to be violent and explosion. They did all the movie full of... The whole movie was based on almost suspense. You don't even get to see a good glimpse of the shark. You just get tiny glimpses here and there. And they had a lot of stock footage. I'll get to that in a second. But the ending, they wanted to go all out. And I'm glad. They did. The shark finally started working because it wasn't working for most of the movie. But they finally got it working. They finally got it up onto that boat. That boat actually was sinking because of the whole scene. They had to take the Orca boat and pull it closer. It was in the ocean. It wasn't very deep underneath. And they had to like drag it out there and get all the actors and the sound tech guys, and there was a big quabble about that apparently. They almost lost that ship. As for the stock footage I just mentioned, they had a team down in Australia and they got a lot of real footage of real sharks. However, they wanted a 25, 26 foot shark. The sharks they were filming down there 10 to 14 tops about. They're still big sharks, but they weren't as big as what the movie was calling for. So they had an idea of getting a little person in a little cage and putting him down there and filming sharks swimming around him, and that must have been pretty scary. And they also had a dummy, a little dummy that they threw in there too. It was fake. They didn't end up using any of that. I believe the little person's name was Carl, and I feel bad. He got cut out of the movie, but they figured that would make regular sharks look bigger. However, one of the footage they did use, and it was actually just a stroke of luck and made the movie a lot better, is when a shark gets tangled above the cage and it literally breaks the cage off the boat and it sinks to the ground and it gets untied and it swims away. That part later on is Hooper, they had to rewrite the script just to fit that part because it was great footage and they didn't want to lose it, and they're really glad they got to have it. Hooper was supposed to originally, they were disappointed he wasn't in the cage, but they wrote it out so the cage was bashed. It wasn't really Richard Dreyfuss, it was a stuntman, and then somebody else for the eyes. Plus, if you count the little person who didn't get even in the film, it's like 4 different Hoopers. And the dummy. But Hooper, they had to write it out to where Hooper escaped the cage before that scene got put in. However, if you pay close enough attention, that big dent where Hooper escapes out of, the bar's bent, that's not there when the shark is really tangled in. But it is awesome footage nonetheless. This movie was somewhat rushed because they were like, film now, and there wasn't even a script yet. So there was a script with a rewrite to a rewrite. In fact, Robert Shaw, for his Indianapolis speech, he rewrote it, which was already a rewrite of a rewrite. But that was a great speech, so kudos to him and to everybody else who worked on that. Because it finally kind of gave his very off-color character some likability. It's kind of just a weird dick until then. You got this bumbling mayor who's telling people to get in the water. He wants people to swim. He doesn't make more money for them being in the water. The beach is already packed. But he goes up to his family and he's like, "Why aren't you in the water? Get in the water." Well, the beach is packed. He's making his money. He's got the tourists that are coming in. They're gonna buy stuff. They're gonna do everything. Actually, swimming doesn't make more money, but whatever. It's a good scene nonetheless. I enjoyed it. Amity's a summer town. they had to make 4 different sharks, or if not more. They had one that they just pulled, one that was just fin and tail, I believe, one that turned right, one that turned left, one that they just pulled, which I believe Steven Spielberg refers to that as the Great White Turd. If you haven't seen this movie, you really have been living under a rock. Or you're really young and you're waiting for some sort of reboot. But no, screw that. Go see this movie. It's 4th of July. Be safe. Just want to do a special shout out to the Horror Addict cousins who helped out with the filming of this with our opening. We had Prozac, Zachary Bird, helped film a lot, and also a beach dweller alongside with Casey, and Sausage, man. Thank you for putting on that rubber shark mask and swimming in that freezing river. I really appreciate that. Also, shout out goes out to my brother-in-law, Dusty Clayton, who does a lot of scuba diving and films it. He gave us our stock footage of underwater, and if you want to check out more of his scuba diving, which is just off to the shores of Seattle, he's got tons of great footage finding crabs, sharks, cars, and other great things underwater. Put a little link to his channel underneath the thing. So thank you guys. This movie everybody thought was going to be impossible to make, but they managed to pull it off. Just barely. But glad they did, because this movie, the main reason why most people pee themselves a little bit when they're in the water, because they think about a shark eating them whole and how violent it would be. Went on to spawn horrible nightmares for anybody who's ever swam in deep water, and some video games, a frustrating one for the Nintendo, a hilariously fun one for like the Xbox and possibly PS2. I don't know if it came out for the PS2 or not. And spawned some guilty pleasure sequels. Not as many as Back to the Future 2 predicted though. Come on, this is 2015. We're not that far ahead on Jaws sequels. I guess maybe it is time we get a new one. Big 3D thing come down off the theater. Come on, I want to see that. I want to be eaten by a big 3D shark. Get on that, Hollywood. Subscribe, leave a comment, hit the like button, and swim safe, play with your fireworks safe. Shark!
Shark!
Happy 4th of July from the Horror Addicts.
Shark!